Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Karthikeyan Kubuswamy. Today we are going to dive into the world of user story. Whether you are new to product management or looking to refine your skills, this video has something for everyone. Ready to learn how to write effective user stories that can transform your products? Let's get started. What exactly is a user story? In a nutshell, user stories are short and simple descriptions of a feature told from the perspective of an end user. For example, the user personas which we discussed previously. User stories are not just a document, it is a conversation. You create a user story, brainstorm with your team, have a conversation, learn from each other, improvise, make it close to the real world, and then start working on that user story. A typical user story format is as follows. As a user, you can add any type of user persona you have over here. So you have to mention the goal you want to achieve for this particular user persona so that some reasons can be achieved, some solutions can be provided, some problems could be solved. So this is the basic general format of a user story. So who wants? The user persona. So as a user, I want something so that I can achieve something. As a user, I want something so that I can achieve something. So this is a general user story format. As a user, here you have to use the user personas which we discussed previously, and I want something. You have to understand the problem you are going to solve for that user persona, and you should have a goal for it. That goal should be part of what you want so that you solve that problem for him and add value to the user. This user story format helps the team to understand who is the user, what the user wants, and what has to be achieved, and why it is important, and what they need. Now let us discuss why the user stories are essential. They help to align the user stories so that the teams are aligned and prioritize these user stories and keep the focus on user needs. Remember, when I say user, these are the user personas which you have already enhanced. The following table defines the benefits of having a user story. The first point is clarity, which simplifies the complex requirements into understandable chunks. User story is meant for collaboration, enables collaboration, conversation, and bring alignment between teams. It is also flexibility because, as I said earlier, user story is not just a document, it is a collaboration. It brings flexibility of inspect and adapt. While you propose a user story, once you discuss that with the team and the stakeholders, you may get different perceptions, dimensions, and learnings, which would be the input in the evolution of that user story. So user story will also help you to be flexible in understanding so that you don't fail when you deliver it to the users. For example, Spotify uses user stories to prioritize features to enhance the user experience, ensuring they always remain user-centric. Let's get practical. How to write a user story? These are the steps to follow. Identify the user. Which user will be benefiting from this feature? So from the previous discussion, you have to pick the persona and check the feature. What are the problems each persona has? So which user will be happy by solving this particular problem? So you can understand who will benefit from this feature, meaning the user story. Define the goal. What do you want to achieve? Meaning what the user want to achieve. That should be the goal. Everything should be user-centric. Clarify the reasons. You have to emphasize clearly that why this feature is important to that particular user. A sample user story. As a music lover, I want to create a playlist so that I can enjoy them every time. Or for example, Netflix. As a user, you log in and sometimes you just search, okay, I want to check for action movies, and you select particular action movies and add it to the my list. Why do you do that? So whenever you have time, you don't want to spend time in search, just jump into that my list and start watching it. That is a feature. So you can write it as a user story. As a Netflix user or as a movie lover, I want to add certain movies to my list because when I have time, I can watch those movies from without spending time on searching to pick a movie, right? Too many choice is always a problem. You can help users even by adding this as a feature, which we already use in all Netflix, Amazon, and all the OTT platforms. Now that you have understood, let us try some advanced user story techniques. Acceptance criteria. Adding an acceptance criteria is so important for a user story. Acceptance criteria is the one which ensures that the user story is done or not. For example, Spotify acceptance criteria. The playlist should hold 100 songs. So when you deliver a playlist feature, that should be capable of holding 100 songs. If it is lesser, then the user story is failed. Another example, user playlist can be shared with friends. So connect it together. A playlist should have 100 songs, and then that particular user can share that playlist with their friends. So collectively, this two user story comes into a feature. Now if you are failing with lesser songs in a playlist, or there is a capability sharing capability challenge of that playlist to the friends, then the feature is not delivered. So the acceptance criteria define the stories are delivered properly, and all these list of stories, for example, like I mentioned, there are 2 stories, and there are several. If there are more X number of stories, all these stories are tied to a feature, and then feature is delivered only when all the acceptance criteria of this user story is done. And feature is also having acceptance criteria. We can discuss that in later in the series. User story mapping. This technique visually organize and map the user stories within a feature, so that you can understand when this feature is going to be delivered, what is the timeline, and all the user stories within that feature is being handled appropriately to the timeline. A good user story should follow the INVEST criteria. The I stand for independent, N for negotiable, V for valuable, E for estimatable, S for small, and T for testable. The user story should be independent enough so that they should not be blocked because of any dependency between the user stories. Negotiable when there is a feature if there is a timeline challenge, if you want to reduce certain features within the story, or if you want to add certain things, you have to make some adjustments according to different commitments. The user story should be flexible enough to negotiate and accommodate those changes. It should be valuable enough by solving their pain problems, relieve them from the pain. And the user story should be estimatable. You cannot say like we could not estimate. There are different techniques. For example, if some user stories are so complex, the estimation could be higher. If there is more uncertainty, the estimation would be higher. We will discuss more estimation techniques as well in the series. But the user story, for sure, it should be estimatable. It should be small enough so that it can be handled precisely, and it is simple, small, anyone can understand, and can be completed and delivered within a short time span. For example, 2-week sprint iteration, or 1 week or 3-week sprint. This user story should be accommodated within a sprint, and it should be delivered. And it should be testable. The delivery the user story makes should be testable. Without testing, the completion of user story is not considered. Airbnb also uses user stories to enhance the user experience. Every feature aligns with the user journey. That's how they ensure the deliveries using the user stories. Amazon's success is also partly because of this user stories. Allows them to continuously iterate and improve their user stories, which naturally improves their user experience. In contracts, Kodak failed because Kodak, I think you know the Kodak, the film making company, failed because it did not adapt the digital photography, and they did not prioritize the digital photography related feature in their product development. Now it's time to create a user story. Take a paper and pen, spend 10 minutes. Keep in mind the format of user story and the intention the user story have, why it is important, the value you are going to create because of this user story. Consider objective you have in your mind, start writing a user story. Feel free to pause the video while you work on this. Now it is quiz time. Let's test your knowledge with a couple of quiz questions. What is the primary purpose of a user story? To document requirements, to represent user needs and goals, to list features. The next question, what does the I in the INVEST criteria stand for? Informed, independent, involved. I know this is easy questions for you, but I think it will be helpful in refreshing what we have seen so far. Next step, how to implement this in your work, your business, if you're an entrepreneur, in your idea, how you can implement the user story. Here is a blueprint for implementation. Once you have your user story ready, share it with your team. Discuss with them, sit with them. So most preferably, if you are live in a meeting room, that is great. But if you are working remotely, have your video call, see each other, and then put the user story draft on the table and discuss it, brainstorm. Be very open in listening the feedbacks and reply. Do not judge. Have an open mind in listening. Then capture all those inputs, brainstorm, and revisit your user story. You should also discuss with the team, also with yourself, about the prioritization of this user story. Because when you discuss, you will understand the different dimensions of the user story, relating it with the other user stories in the pipeline, which is connected or mapped with the feature, the bigger feature. So now you can understand which has to go first and next. This information will help you to make a decision on the priority of the user stories. Develop and test. This step is to develop the user story and deliver it. Once you deliver it, according to the acceptance criteria, it should meet all the acceptance criteria points, and that comes with a testing report. The testing report should hold that all the acceptance criteria, corner cases, negative cases, everything is met. That's how you ensure that the user story is proper and delivered. Review is something where you demo the user story, meaning you will present it in a forum where all the stakeholders and engineers, sales, whoever is required for it is there, and so they will immediately see how it has been delivered. Is that really solving the problem for that particular user according to the goals mentioned in the user story? Was that achieved? All the acceptance criteria achieved? And do they also learn something new by watching it visually? Some new ideas pops up in their mind. That inspection and adapt process is happening in this review, which is print review. That would be our PA demos. All the demo part is so important when we review the deliveries, so that we gather all this feedback and ensure this user story, by releasing it to the market, it adds value, or something else should be added to this user story. Only then we can release it to the market. That is one thing. And you can also identify new user stories complementing the user story which you are yet to deliver, and add those user story to your backlog and priorities. Congratulations, you have just taken a big step in managing the user stories. If you found this video helpful, this is going to be a learning path for product managers. If you have missed my previous videos, I encourage you to explore my playlist, product management playlist. It starts with the first video about the product management mindset. If you go through these videos in a sequence, you can easily understand the basic and advanced things in the product management field. In our next video, we will be discussing about agile methodologies from basic to advanced. Share your user stories in comments. I would love to see what you have come up with. See you in the next topic.